Whatever. Must be quite a good life when you can come and go whenever you please. You know, I have to stay here every week in front of the camera. Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Well, look who decided to show up. This guy just comes and goes whenever he wants, right? Alright, so let's move on. We're going to stay within the comic books here, folks. We're going to talk about Vader's Quest. It was a 4-issue series by Dark Horse, written by Darko Macon. And in this 4-episode miniseries, Vader discovers Luke's full name and is out with a vengeance to capture Skywalker. Now, you may be thinking, Matt, hold on. Didn't you just review Marvel 35? And in that you said, Vader discovers Luke's name. So, do we have a contradiction here? Aha! Well, I'm going to talk about that. Yes, you have 2 instances where Luke discovers Vader's name. But after rereading Vader's Quest, I discovered that I don't think it's a contradiction. Now, hear me out. Now, this was never explained because back in the day, and I guess I should throw a little backstory here, Darko Macon also wrote Lady Luck with Rich Hanley that was in Star Wars Tales number 3 that I reviewed a couple of episodes ago. And while I was talking to Rich about Lady Luck, he also talked to me about Vader's Quest. You see, Rich was the one who got to kind of proofread the comic book to make sure it didn't contradict with anything. And he said he never remembers checking with Marvel. He remembers Darth Vader, the instance of Darth Vader finding out that Luke's last name in the Marvel comic books. But I asked him, I said, well, I heard that they weren't considered canon. The Marvel comic books were. And he said that was correct. At that time, the old Marvel comic books were considered secondary canon. Like, you can take pieces out of it, but it all didn't happen because they weren't really sure how they could fit it all in. Now, eventually they did fit it all in, and for the most part, it's pretty smooth how it, fits together. Now, this could be a little bump in the road, and it'd been a while since he'd kind of read both comic books, so he didn't know. So I took it upon myself to kind of look through Marvel 35, look through Vader's Quest 1 through 4, and this is the best I can do here, but I think it does make sense. In Marvel 35, it's obvious that Vader did not know Luke's name. Now, if you read Vader's Quest with that knowledge, if you've read this in chronological order, then it can basically look like, yeah, Darth Vader knows what Luke's name is now. He knows his last name is Skywalker. And so when we get to Vader's Quest, and it starts the comic books are very similar. It starts very similar with someone, getting tortured and maybe one of their dying breaths is Luke's last name. And Darth Vader is not the one doing the interrogating in Vader's Quest. Someone else is. And he's saying, hey, did he deliver a name? Oh, he sure did. I'm glad you came. Well, wait a minute. Vader was there in Marvel 35. He was interrogating the pilot to get the name out of him. I think this was a totally different interrogation that happened on another planet. You see, Vader had given the request out to everyone and anyone within his empire. He went, find me the name of that kid that blew up the Death Star. I want to know. And so everyone was on the lookout to find that. And so it is conceivable that more than one person discovered Luke's last name and gave that to Vader, who in turn killed them for the information. That's right. Darth Vader goes slaughtering anyone and everyone who heard the last name Skywalker. He wants that to be hush hush. And you're thinking, why? Why would that matter? I mean, Anakin Skywalker's long dead. No one thinks it's him. Why do people care? He didn't care about the populace knowing. He didn't want the Emperor to know that he had a son that was still alive. Now, this kind of feeds into the story that we get from Empire with him trying to get Luke to join him to take out the Emperor. Because Darth Vader knows he's too weak, as half machine. He's too weak. He needs his son to help him out. And so Darth Vader's thinking, man, I need to keep this information quiet and keep it hidden from the Emperor, or Sheev. Thankfully, that wasn't in our universe. But he didn't want the Emperor to know, because if he didn't know, then Vader could have the upper hand and the level of surprise to defeat the Emperor with his son, if plans worked out right. But that makes sense to me. And so if you read Vader's Quest with Marvel 35 in mind, to me it seems like, yeah, he already knew, he just didn't want anyone else knowing. And I bet soon after that, off the pages, he told everyone to cease the hunt. He's moving on to other things. You know, he wasn't looking for the rebel pilot anymore. He had more important matters to consider, or whatever. Meanwhile, Luke is on this planet. He's making friends with the alien race. He becomes such good friends with them that at the end of the 4-issue series, they're going to defend him when Vader and his troopers come to get Luke. I should say this, I don't think it's a spoiler, but there is another story arc going on as well with the pilot that gave up Luke's name. You see, he didn't really die. He actually escaped captivity and tried later on to redeem himself for giving up Luke's name. So there's kind of that little story arc in there as well. Now, what did I think of Vader's Quest? Well, I thought Vader's Quest was okay. I thought it was fine. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just there. And I even thought that when I read it, because I was super excited to hear, oh yeah, this is the story of Vader going after Luke. You know, he found out the last name Skywalker. But it just kind of turns into just a regular comic issue, and that's not really an insult. Again, I'm not saying this is a bad series, but should you read it? Sure, I guess. It's super cheap and super easy to find, so you can go ahead. But it's not that big of a deal as it seems, or as it should have been. Now, what could they have done better? I have no idea. I'm not the guy to ask that, so maybe I shouldn't even be talking about this. But I thought the series was okay. One other thing that Rich did tell me while he was reading it, one of the characters in it is named Mala Mala. And that's because Darko used, he's Croatian, and he used a lot of Croatian names as his characters in the series. In fact, a lot of the names he uses in Vader's Quest are from his homeland. And he really liked the word Mala. Well, as you know, Mala is Chewbacca's wife. And so he says, you may want to avoid saying the name Mala, because call her something different. Well, he didn't want to change the name, so he said, what if I just say Mala Mala? And they said, okay, fine. And did you know that Rich Handley himself, or a caricature of him, appears in the comic book? It's on, I think it's the second page of the very first issue. It's these two pilots, or two rebel people, coming up to Luke and saying, hey, I want to introduce you to my friend Rich. He's a big fan. Now, it doesn't look anything like Rich Handley, but Darko put that in there to thank Rich for proofreading his comic books. So this is pretty cool when you think about Rich. Rich doesn't sound like a Star Wars name. I never even saw that when I first read it. And when Rich told me, I was like, how cool is that? You know, even if the character doesn't look like that. If they said, hey, this is Matt, he's a big fan of yours, and me going, yeah, I was like, yeah, that was me. I am in the expanded universe. I think that'd be so cool. So congratulations to Rich for actually getting himself, or his namesake, I should say, in the expanded universe. All right, folks, that is all the time I have for now. See you next time with another video. No, I don't think they'd ever put you in a story. Neither would I.